न्यूयॉर्क सिटी के मेयर के इलेक्शन के लिए पहले मुस्लिम अमेरिकन उम्मीदवार जोहरान ममदानी का कहना है कि न्यूयॉर्क सिटी में बसने वाले 2 लाख रजिस्टर्ड मुस्लिम अमेरिकन वोटर्स न्यूयॉर्क सिटी की तारीख के पहले मुस्लिम अमेरिकन मेयर के इंतखाब में कलीदी किरदार अदा कर सकते हैं।
We have 8.5 million people. And हम सब जानते हैं कि of that 8.5 million, तकरीबन 1 million are Muslim. और उस मिलियन में 2 लाख are registered Democrats. पर पिछली elections में only 7% of Muslim Democrats have voted. And I do not blame our community क्योंकि much of the time there is not much to vote for. But what we are showing in this election is an opportunity to show that Muslims don't just belong in New York City, we also belong in City Hall.
33 साल जोहरान ममदानी मुसलसल 3 टर्म से न्यूयॉर्क स्टेट असेंबली के मेंबर मुंतखब हो रहे हैं और रवां साल के दौरान वो न्यूयॉर्क सिटी के मेयर की बड़ी दौड़ के बड़े मैदान में उतरे हैं। युगांडा में पैदा होने वाले मिस्टर ममदानी 7 साल की उम्र में माइग्रेट होकर अमेरिका आए और 27 साल की उम्र में न्यूयॉर्क स्टेट के असेंबली मेंबर मुंतखब हुए। जोरान ममदानी 24 जून को मेयर के ओहदे के लिए नामजद होने के लिए डेमोक्रेट प्राइमरी इलेक्शन लड़ रहे हैं। उनकी इंतखाबी मुहिम में 20,000 इंतखाबी वर्कर्स रजाकाराना खिदमत अंजाम दे रहे हैं और जोरान ममदानी अपनी इंतखाबी मुहिम के लिए $8 मिलियन जो कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा फंड्स इकट्ठा करने की हद है का हदफ हासिल करके एक तारीख रकम कर चुके हैं।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम जोरान ममदानी है। मैं न्यूयॉर्क स्टेट असेंबली मेंबर हूँ अस्टोरिया और लॉन्ग आइलैंड सिटी का, और 7 महीने पहले I began my campaign to be the next mayor of this city. I'm speaking to you today as a candidate firmly in second place with 32 days until the election, the first Muslim elected official to ever run for mayor is Sheher mein. And this is a campaign that is about making this city more affordable. Jidhar bhi aap ho in New York City, you know that this is the most expensive city in the United States. 1 in 4 New Yorkers are living in poverty. Or agar aap Pakistani ho, then the rate of poverty is even higher, close to 30%. This is a city that deserves a local government that finally takes that crisis seriously. And we will do that by not only making it cheaper to live here, to raise a family here, but also to start a business here. And I'm excited to share this campaign, this message, this vision with each and every New Yorker across the 5 boroughs and to win this race on June 24th.
Very good. जैसा कि आपके इंतखाबी मुहिम के बारे में अक्सर आपको देखा कि आपकी जो रैलीज वगैरह बड़ी कामयाब गई हैं और बड़े उसमें लोगों का रश भी रहा है, ख़ासतौर पे यूथ बहुत आपके साथ है, चाहे वो इधर साउथ एशियन है, मुस्लिम है, जहाँ के भी ताल्लुक रखते हैं। अभी तक जो पोल सर्वे उसके मुताबिक ऑब्वियसली कॉमर्स सबसे आगे जा रहे हैं और मेयर एडम के बारे में एक आ जा रहा है कि वो शायद एज अ प्राइवेट कैंडिडेट या इंडिपेंडेंट वो लड़ रहे हैं। तो आप अपने आप को कहाँ पे सक देते हैं? जैसे अभी आप पिछली दफ़ा भी कई दफ़ा आपने तकरीरों में ये कहा कि आपकी सेकंड इस वक्त पोजीशन है एज अ पोल वाइज, तो आप क्या समझते हैं कि जैसे अब आपको कोई सी ऐसी आपको मोटिवेशन है कि जिससे आप ये समझते हैं कि आप ये प्राइमरी जीत सकते हैं, या इसमें आपको क्या कौन सी ऐसी होप है जिसमें आप समझते हैं कि आप वाकई प्राइमरी जीत सकते हैं?
देखो, गवर्नर कोमो एक फॉर्मर गवर्नर है और ही इज़ द सन ऑफ अनदर फॉर्मर गवर्नर, तो हर एक इंसान इस शहर में उनको जानते हैं, उनके नाम भी जानते हैं। एंड वी आर अ कैंपेन दैट बिगैन दिस रेस पोलिंग एट 1%, और अभी पिछली 2-3 महीने से वी आर फर्मली इन सेकंड प्लेस। एंड आई एम कॉन्फिडेंट कि हम ये इलेक्शन जीतेंगे क्योंकि मैं जो मोमेंटम में देखता हूँ अक्रॉस द 5 boroughs इज इनक्रेडिबल। और जैसे आप बोलते थे, इट्स मोमेंटम फ्रॉम यंग पीपल, इट्स मोमेंटम फ्रॉम progressives, it's momentum from South Asians, from Muslims, and from all New Yorkers. Because what people are hungry for is a different kind of politics, a politics that puts working people first. और ये आखिरी महीने में एक मौका है to take this momentum which has raised us अभी $8 million, the maximum amount we can spend in this race, momentum which has led to us having 20,000 volunteers who have knocked on 5 lakh doors across the city, called a lakh of New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, and to build on that. और हम देखें कि 6 week पहले Andrew Cuomo had a 40-point lead in the final round. 2 week पहले that 40 point became 20 points. We cut it in half. और अभी हम देखते हैं कि that 20 is going to become 12. in these next 4 weeks, we are going to reduce that gap further and further until it's single digits, and we have days until the election, and that's when we will start to lead this race.
So Zoran,
अच्छा ठीक है.
जोरान आप कैसे समझते हैं कि न्यूयॉर्क सिटी एक मुसलमान को फर्स्ट एवर इलेक्टेड मुस्लिम मेयर एक्सेप्ट करने के लिए या बनाने के लिए तैयार है सिटी? क्या आपकी स्ट्रॉन्ग जो कन्विक्शन है इस हवाले से?
To me, it's clear. क्योंकि जब भी मैं लोगों के साथ बात करता हूँ, they know that I am the first Muslim elected official to even run for this position, let alone to win this position. And yet what I found in New Yorkers is a belief in equality and respect. और जब भी आप मुसलमानों के साथ बात करते हो, wherever they may live across the 5 boroughs, that is what we want, that is what we deserve, that's what every community wants and deserves. And I think it's a beautiful opportunity to not only show that Muslims belong in New York City, but Muslims also belong in City Hall.
So my question is that यहाँ पे एक misperception भी है city में among the Muslims as well. Okay, because you are a Muslim, so that's why you are not gonna win. Some groups, some Muslim, ये भी है. जब हम बात करते हैं लोगों से, मगर एक तो आप इस इशू को बताएं, दूसरा ये कि आप का स्टैंड क्या है, लोग पूछते हैं हमसे कि आपका स्टैंड पैलेस्टाइन के हवाले से क्या है, वो भी क्लियर करें. और आप अपनी जो नेशनल के जो आप कुछ लोग कहते हैं आप पाकिस्तान से हैं, कुछ लोग कहते हैं, ये क्लियर करें ताकि लोगों को एक मैसेज आए कि सो लोगों का जो है ना क्लियर हो.
जी, तो मैं हर एक सवाल को जवाब दूंगा. पहले तो मैं युगांडा में पैदा हुआ, ईस्ट अफ्रीका में. And my mother's family is from Punjab in India. My father's family are Gujarati Muslims who left Gujarat about 200 years ago to East Africa. When I was 7 years old, hum New York City aaye, and I grew up in Morningside Heights. On the question of Palestine, I have been the foremost advocate for Palestinian human rights, among the foremost advocates in our city as an elected official. And I have stood up for Palestinian human rights by introducing legislation, Albany mein, that would make it illegal for New York State registered charities to fund Israeli settler enterprises. I have led a hunger strike, White House ke bahar, for 5 days, calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. And I have stood up time and time again saying that I support not only Palestinian human rights, not only an immediate ceasefire, but also I am a supporter of the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement to bring Israel into compliance with international law. Those are the things I have said. Those are the commitments I will continue to hold. And जैसे आप बोलते थे कि बहुत सारे लोग सोचते हैं कि because I'm Muslim, मैं जीत नहीं सकता. And this is what many face when they are the first. जब भी मैं असेंबली के लिए run करता था in 2020, there were uncles who came up to me and said well-meaningly, लोगों को बताना मत कि आप मुसलमान हो. Because people are afraid. People have lived through the years after 9/11 where they could not embrace every aspect of themselves when they spoke with others about who they were. And I understand where that fear comes from. But I've also seen, shuru se, we were at 1%. We were told कि हम 5% नहीं break कर सकते थे, हम 10% नहीं break कर सकते, then 15, then 20. Now we are at 22%. We will continue to grow. And every step is when others start to believe. And we are telling those, if you didn't believe in the beginning, but abhi, you've started to believe, there's room for you. Because with these last 32 days, it is an opportunity to win this race. जी जी
ये फाइन को
जी 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 जी.
My question is, people know that you are very progressive, right? If you elect a mayor, what should be your policy regarding the same-sex marriages or other things?
Yeah.
Because this doesn't allow in Islam to be have. What should be your policy if you become a mayor?
My policy will be consistent with that of city law that is today. And what I mean by that is to have equal rights for all people. And ultimately, when I was raised by my grandparents especially to understand what Islam is, they told me the first thing is to be a good person. The first thing is to help those in need and harm no one. And that will be our policies, to keep what is and ensure that everyone has what they need to flourish. And just ek aur cheez, if I can add, I grew up in this city and many of my friends' fathers were taxi drivers. I saw in close proximity as so many of our community had been sold a dream by this city for a ticket to the middle class. This government would tell New Yorkers who had just arrived here, कि अगर आप middle class life चाहते हो, you should buy a medallion. और करीब ऐसे 20-30 साल पहले, the medallion used to cost about 2 lakh, right? उस time पे 2 lakh. And then because the city had a budget shortfall, they increased the value of the medallion sale price to about $1 million. They knew that they could never afford to pay that loan back because the value was still 2 lakh. And yet they did that to balance the budget on the backs of thousands of working class taxi drivers, including many of whom were Pakistani. Because the taxi driver workforce is about 94% immigrant, 40% Desi. And I saw as that debt got to a point where the average debt of a taxi driver was 5,50,000. And one of the commitments I made जब मैं assembly के लिए run किया था was to cancel excessive medallion debt. और उस पहला साल में, in 2021, the first thing I did in Albany was जब Bill de Blasio Albany आया था, I served on the city's committee. I had 3 minutes. I pushed him on the question of debt relief for taxi drivers. Uske baad, I started to work with the New York Taxi Workers Alliance. We went on 45 days of consecutive press conferences, rallies, city hall ke baaju mein. After that, we escalated. I organized a civil disobedience of 5 other elected officials. We were arrested in front of City Hall calling for that justice. And finally, 15 din ke liye, I went on a hunger strike with those drivers. And on that 15th day, on November 3rd of 2021, we won more than $450 million in debt relief. We took a $550,000 average dollar debt and reduced it down to about $200,000. We removed the ability for banks to seize the homes of taxi drivers, as we've been seeing happening. And we said that if they entered into this agreement with the city would back that agreement. So if a taxi driver couldn't make the payment, the city would step up. That is the first fight I had while I was in office. And that's part of my commitment to making this a city where everyone can thrive. Please.
एक और सवाल है
जी.
जैसे अभी जो खबरों में है कि कोविड के हवाले से इन्वेस्टिगेशन हो रही है हुकूमत के खिलाफ, तो आप ये समझते नहीं कि ये आपके लिए एक अच्छा मौका है कि आप अपने इलेक्शन कैंपेन के पेस को और ज़्यादा मजबूत करें और ज़्यादा इसको बढ़ाएं, और इसको आप अपने लिए कुछ एडवांटेज समझते हैं? ये कौमों का जब ये रिसेंटली जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन की बात चल रही है, तो आप इसके अलावा मेरा क्वेश्चन एक और ये है कि मुस्लिम्स और साउथ एशियन कम्युनिटीज़ के अलावा दीगर कम्युनिटीज़ तक आपकी कितनी आपकी एक्सेस है और कितना वो आपकी बात सुनते हैं?
कौन से कम्युनिटीज?
दूसरी कम्युनिटी
जी बियॉन्ड दैट जी। तो जब हम पोलिंग डेटा देखते हैं तो हम देख सकते हैं कि आवर सपोर्ट इज बियॉन्ड जस्ट साउथ एशियन एंड मुस्लिम कम्युनिटीज. इट इज सपोर्ट that we can see as the only campaign other than the Cuomo campaign to break double digits with every single ethnic group. In Brooklyn, we are currently tied with Andrew Cuomo in the borough that has the most votes for the city of New York. If the election was today of New Yorkers just 45 and below, we would win this election. Our path to winning this race is to get more and more New Yorkers 50 and above to hear our message and to understand our path. और to your question डोनाल्ड ट्रंप के बारे में और ये जी देखो बात ये है कि एंड्रू क्वोमो lied to Congress. That is something he did, and it is part of a long history of corruption and deceit. And I do not trust the Trump administration to pursue justice. They are not interested in justice. Their actions, I find them to be dangerous. And I'm not sure what impact it will have on the race. I think it will invite New Yorkers to look at the rest of Andrew Cuomo's record. Because बहुत सारे New Yorkers, they just know his name, but they don't know his record. His record is one of cutting Medicaid, stealing money from the MTA, claiming to fight for working people, cutting rich donors a tax break, going after the more than 10 women who accused him of sexual harassment. That is his record. And that is the record that I think New Yorkers will not like when they see.
If one more time in Urdu, the changes we will bring it.
उर्दू में तो मुश्किल है
चलें कुछ
पर कोशिश तो करूंगा. देखो बात ये है कि इस शहर में it's very difficult to survive. क्योंकि जब भी मैं लोगों के साथ बात करता हूं तो वो मुझे बोलते हैं कि I don't know if I have enough money to pay my rent. I don't know if I have enough money for my childcare. I don't even know if I have enough money for my Metro card. $2.90. 1 in 5 New Yorkers cannot afford that. There is a crisis of inequality in this city. और मैं बोलता हूँ कि it's city government's job to respond to that. It's city government's job to make sure that you can stay in New York City. Because what we're seeing right now is there's an exodus of working class New Yorkers. वो Pennsylvania जाते हैं, Connecticut जाते हैं, New Jersey जाते हैं. And if you want to have children, then you know that people will start to think about moving out of New York City. या वो Long Island जाएंगे, या suburbs जाएंगे, या ये अलग-अलग states में जाएंगे. Because they cannot afford to pay $25,000 a year for childcare. So it's cheaper to send your child to CUNY than it is to find them childcare. And we need to make sure not only that it's easier to raise a family here, but also that with universal childcare, it'll be easier for so many more women to join the workforce. Because right now they have to stay home to do this kind of labor for no compensation. जी
परसेप्शन है मुस्लिम्स में भी और अदर देन मुस्लिम्स
जी
जिनके साथ यूज हों वो लोग जीते हैं कैंडिडेट्स हैं मेयरल और ये व्हाट्स योर पॉइंट ऑन
you know इस शहर में what I have found is there are many things that bring both Jewish and Muslim voters together क्योंकि हम affordability के बारे में बात करते हैं पर एक और चीज़ है safety और जब भी मैं मुस्लिम न्यूयॉर्कर्स के साथ बात करता हूँ I hear that hate crimes against Muslims have increased 65% from last year. And I know that this is a real fear that many have. And I remember, जब मेरी आंटी 9/11 के बाद में हिजाब पहनती थी, she feared to go on the subway. She feared to go outside. She wouldn't even take a walk anymore. And I hear that same fear when I speak to a number of Jewish New Yorkers who tell me, especially after this horrific shooting that they've seen in Washington, D.C., a fear that when they are at the synagogue and they hear the door open, they do not know who is coming inside. That is a fear that should not be one that any New Yorker lives through, and yet it is one that both Muslim and Jewish New Yorkers can empathize with. And what I've also found is that my message of universal human rights, the same belief in justice and humanity and liberation and safety also applying to Palestinians, is one that many Jewish New Yorkers also support. And we've actually seen that we are the campaign with the third most Jewish support in New York City, and I'm proud of that.
Zoran, जो public safety है ये biggest concern है न्यूयॉर्क में. पिछले इस टर्म में भी इससे पहले टर्म में भी ये जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है ये क्लेम कर रही है कि इनके दौर में जो क्राइम रेट है वो हिस्टोरिक लोएस्ट लेवल पर रीच किया है. सो नंबर 1 उस क्लेम को आप कैसे रिस्पॉन्ड करते हैं और सेकंड पब्लिक सेफ्टी को कैसे इंश्योर कर सकते हैं? इतने लोग आगे तो लॉ एंड ऑर्डर का मसला होता था, अब जो होमिसाइड्स के केस इतने हैं, ट्रेन में सबवेज में जो क्राइम है वो इतना ज्यादा है कि लोग जो हैं वो सोचते हैं कि न्यूयॉर्क सिटी से अब बाहर मूव हो जाना चाहिए. सो पब्लिक सेफ्टी का जो चैलेंज है उसको लिए आपकी क्या स्ट्रेटजी हो?
देखो 4 साल पहले जब एरिक एडम्स मेयर के लिए रन करते थे तो वो न्यूयॉर्कर्स को बताए थे कि they don't have to choose between safety and justice. और अभी अगर आप न्यूयॉर्कर्स को पूछो then they will tell you that they are not experiencing either safety or justice. And my commitment is to live up to those words that were said. क्योंकि in this year we are seeing declines in shootings, we are seeing declines in murders and in subway crime, but overall crime as a whole has still increased. And even beyond those statistics, जब भी आप लोगों को पूछते हैं कि where do you feel least safe, almost every time मैं subway सुनता हूँ, subway platform, subway station. तो हम एक नया डिपार्टमेंट प्रपोज करते हैं, उसका नाम है Department of Community Safety. What this would do is it would allow police officers to focus on public safety. They have a clear and critical role in creating public safety. But we are asking them to do the jobs of social workers and mental health professionals, which is preventing them from focusing on those actual major 7 categories of crime. इसलिए जब भी हम वो clearance rates देखते हैं, we can see that they're not actually increasing, whether we're speaking about murders or shootings or homicides, whatever it may be. And our plan is to, through this new department, tackle mental health, homelessness, gun violence, hate violence, and victim services. And with regards to the subways, we are going to deploy dedicated teams of mental health professionals to the 100 subway stations, jisme they are the highest rates of mental health crises and homelessness.
What should be your policy regarding the ICE raid in New York City?
It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. We have laws in this city that do not allow ICE to enter into our schools, our hospitals, our city properties, the properties of city contractors. But we have a mayor who has opted for collaboration with this administration, even when it means going against the law of New York City. Or dekho, I am not just the first Muslim elected to run, the first South Asian elected to run. I would also be the first immigrant mayor in generations. And I would be proud to stand up for our policies that will keep ICE out of our city properties unless they can produce a judicial warrant signed by a judge. And I would be proud to fight back against ICE detaining New Yorkers like Mahmoud Khalil from their apartment building lobby for the crime of simply being Palestinian. This is ridiculous. He should be released. And we deserve a mayor who will say that, not one like Eric Adams, who complains that more people care about Mahmoud Khalil than they do about him, or someone like Andrew Cuomo, who took 72 hours to say anything. Or 24 घंटे के बाद, he retracted even that. And I think we have to remember that after Andrew Cuomo resigned in disgrace from being the governor of this state, he should have reflected on his misconduct. He should have apologized. He should have acknowledged. But instead, he decided to join Benjamin Netanyahu's legal defense team at the International Criminal Court. That is who this governor is.
Okay.
Last question.
I think it's a great question because it speaks to the fact of how city government has failed so many New Yorkers. Or, before I was an assembly member, मैं foreclosure prevention housing counselor था, Queens में, एक organization के लिए उनका नाम है Chaya CDC. And I would knock on the doors of South Asian homeowners across Queens whose names were on the tax lien list. And I would say, do you know that they are about to sell your debt? And oftentimes I would hear, just like I heard from one client who just came back from Pakistan, that I had no idea. And I didn't know how to enter into the payment program with Department of Finance that required no money down and would save my debt from being sold to a third-party debt collector. The baat ye hai ki we need to both fund outreach in the languages that New Yorkers actually speak. We also need to more appropriately fund the community-based organizations jo wo outreach, they're already doing it. And right now, if you look at the city owes nonprofits more than $800 million in delayed payments. More than $800 million. Close to 90% of all of the contracts the city has agreed to, they have yet to pay for. And that makes it impossible for organizations to do this kind of work. Because they already know that it has to be reimbursable, but now they don't even know if they'll get it. And that's ridiculous. And I will change that also by ensuring that we actually have a team that looks like New York City. क्योंकि हम सब जानते हैं कि city government में typically the only chance a Muslim has to be in a position is to be the Muslim liaison. But हम सब जानते हैं कि our excellence, like any community, is not limited to just speaking about our community. We can be commissioners, deputy mayors, mayors, because we are just like any other New Yorker. और मुझे एक और चीज बोलना है, which is about the fact that this is a campaign for working class New Yorkers and also for middle class New Yorkers. Many of our community dream of owning a small business. और हम सब जानते हैं कि more than 90% of firms in New York City are small businesses. They employ more than 50% of all New Yorkers in the private sector. Yet we are making it too hard for these businesses to open and to stay open. देखो, अगर आपको एक barber shop खोलना है, then you will have to fill out 24 forms, go to 7 different agencies, 12 alag activities, just to open a barbershop. And that's what makes it impossible to do this kind of work. Is ek shehar mein, there are more than 6,000 rules and regulations. We have made a commitment that we will cut those fines and fees in half by 50%. We will increase funding to one-to-one case managers for small businesses with $20 million of additional funding. Right now, अगर आप एक small business owner हो और आप city के साथ, you're looking for assistance, you won't find it. Only 3% of small business owners are working with the city's best teams. We are going to have that number skyrocket because we wanted to make it easy to open a small business, to keep that business open, and to have that business be part of the city.
एक आखिरी क्वेश्चन
Please.
कि जो इलेक्शंस और स्पेशली प्राइमरी इलेक्शंस
जी।
में वोटर्स टर्नआउट एक बड़ा चैलेंज रहा है
जी।
सो आपकी क्या स्ट्रेटजी होगी जो जनरली वोटर्स हैं वो भी बाहर आए और स्पेशली जो साउथ एशियन मुस्लिम और जो इमिग्रेंट वोटर्स
जी।
हैं वो भी आए और वोट करें और आखिर में ये भी मैसेज दे दें कि प्राइमरी इलेक्शन कब हो रहा है अर्ली वोटिंग कब स्टार्ट हो रही है
जी।
और वोटर्स को आप क्या गाइड करना चाहिए
जी।
इस हवाले से
पहले तो प्राइमरी इलेक्शन जून 24 पे है, अर्ली वोटिंग 10 दिन के लिए है, उससे पहले जून 14 पे शुरू होता है और वही दिन इज ऑल्सो द वोटर रजिस्ट्रेशन डेडलाइन, क्योंकि इस शहर में करीब ऐसे वी हैव 8.5 मिलियन पीपल एंड हम सब जानते हैं कि ऑफ दैट 8.5 मिलियन तकरीबन 1 मिलियन आर मुस्लिम और उस मिलियन में 2 लाख आर रजिस्टर्ड डेमोक्रेट्स, पर पिछली इलेक्शंस में only 7% of Muslim Democrats have voted. And I do not blame our community because much of the time there is not much to vote for. But what we are showing in this election is an opportunity to show that Muslims don't just belong in New York City, we also belong in City Hall. And my message to Pakistani New Yorkers, to Muslim New Yorkers, to every New Yorker is in the next 32 days, we have an opportunity to win a city we can afford. An opportunity where we can do more than just struggle every day to wonder if we can make our rent, our child care, our grocery bill. And that we can also elect for the first time one of our own who, more important than who I will be, is what I will do. And I will serve each and every New Yorker while also showing that this community is just as much a part of this city as any other community.
इसमें रैंक चॉइस वोटिंग तो नहीं है
रैंक चॉइस वोटिंग
वो
है,
भी प्लीज इसका
जी मैं बता सकता हूँ। देखो अगर anyone wants to support this campaign, there are 2 clear ways. पहले तो they can do it from home, वो phone banking कर सकते हैं। तो अगर आप चाहते हो तो प्लीज zoranfornyc.com पे जाओ और उधर आप एक फोन बैंकिंग का ऑप्शन देखेंगे। फोन बैंकिंग का मतलब ये है कि आप घर पे से यू कैन लॉग इन एंड मेक फोन कॉल्स टू न्यू यॉर्कर्स अक्रॉस द 5 boroughs। उन सबको बता सकते हैं कि इलेक्शन कभी है, वोट कैसे कर सकते हैं, कहाँ करेंगे। और दूसरा बात यह है कि वी हैव रेज्ड, मैं बोलता था $8 मिलियन। हम टीवी कमर्शियल्स एयर करते हैं, केबल पे, ब्रॉडकास्ट पे, रेडियोज पे, मेल बॉक्सेस में आप मेलर्स देखेंगे। बट द मोस्ट पावरफुल थिंग वी हैव आर वॉलंटियर्स नॉकिंग ऑन एवरी डोर अक्रॉस दिस सिटी। 7 महीने में हम 5,50,000 डोर्स नॉक किए हैं। अभी ये आखिरी 30 दिन में हमारा प्लान ये है कि वी विल नॉक मोर देन 1 मिलियन डोर्स। तो अगर आप चाहते हो प्लीज जॉइन अस टू हेल्प नॉक द डोर्स इन आवर कम्युनिटी। और आप रैंक चॉइस वोटिंग के बारे में पूछते थे। देखो पिछली इलेक्शन में, mayoral election in 2021 was the first time we had ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting का मतलब ये है कि जब भी आप पोल साइट में जाएंगे और आपको एक बैलेट मिलेगा तो आपको 5 ऑप्शंस मिलेंगे। उस 5 ऑप्शंस में मैं आपको पूछता हूं कि प्लीज वोट फॉर मी एंड रैंक मी नंबर 1 and to fill the other 2, 3, 4 and 5 options. But do not include Andrew Cuomo in your ballot. मैं इसलिए बोलता हूं क्योंकि पिछली दफा बहुत सारे न्यूयॉर्कर्स सोचते थे कि देखो एरिक एडम्स मे बी ही इज द 5th बेस्ट कैंडिडेट, तो मैं 4 दूसरे लोगों को 1 through 4 में रखूंगा एंड देन वी पुट हिम नंबर 5। एरिक एडम्स 7,000 वोट से जीते because those votes were enough to bring him over. We cannot let Andrew Cuomo become the mayor of this city. इसलिए मैं लोगों को बोलता हूं कि don't even put his name on the ballot. That is what everyone should know. And that to fill out the ballot, if you put me number 1 but you put someone number 2 or number 3 or number 4, it still means that you are voting for me number 1. It does not diminish the value of that vote. क्योंकि पिछली दफा there was a lot of messaging हमारी कम्युनिटी में कि एक ही इंसान के लिए वोट करो। मैं ये बोलता हूं कि fill out all 5, but just don't put Andrew Cuomo in there. Thank you जी। Thank you जी।
तो वो उर्दू में थोड़ा सा
तैयार? Yeah, okay. जब भी आप वोट के लिए जाएंगे पोल साइट में और आपको एक बैलेट मिलेगा तो बहुत सारे नाम होंगे, करीब ऐसे 12-13 अलग अलग कैंडिडेट्स। मेरा नाम होगा, आई बी नंबर 1, ब्रैड लैंडर होगा, जेलनोर मायरी होगा, एड्रियन एडम्स होगी, एंड्रू कोमो भी होगा। और उस 12, 13, 14 अलग अलग कैंडिडेट्स में से आप 5 कैंडिडेट्स रैंक कर सकते हो। तो मैं ये बोलता हूं कि रैंक मी नंबर 1, रैंक एनीवन 2, 3, 4, 5, पर एंड्रू कोमो को रैंक मत करो। और मैं इसलिए बोलता हूं क्योंकि जिसको आप रैंकिंग देंगे उनको आप एक मौका देते हैं टू बिकम द मेयर, एंड वी शुड नॉट गिव एंड्रू कोमो दैट मौका। जी,
Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.